right, new units, new information. We are on birds, and that just leaves birds and mammals next. Hopefully the weather will stay nice so that we can go outside and do some bird watching. As I said, I don't know about like binoculars and stuff, but part of this unit will be a bird call test, so that'll be fun. It's too bad that we don't have that door yet, and that's not set up. Maybe next year we could put a bird feeder out there. That might be fun too. Like birds in general. All kinds of birds. All kinds of Missouri birds. Alright, so coming back to this again, we are at aves, which is the second most advanced group. Of course, mammals is the most advanced. So we've come a long way this year. We've covered quite a bit of material, and we're moving at a really good pace. So again, we're in the domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, subphylum Vertebrata. Now, there are 23 different orders, including songbirds, geese, ostriches, penguins, hawks, turkeys, woodpeckers. There's a lot. So, we're going to go over the different orders. You're going to need to know some of the main ones, but I'm not going to expect you to know all 23. Now, the good thing with this is that this is kind of standard throughout bird watching. So we refer to the orders a lot. So Passeriformes is the songbirds. Strigiformes is like the owls. So Falconiformes is the falcons and like peregrine falcon, those kinds of things. Speaking of birds though, when my nephew and my brother were here, we went down to the river on that bridge. There was a bald eagle. You guys know we had bald eagles? Yeah. I did not know that. I was pretty excited to see the bald eagle.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, they live up, they have a nest by our lake.
Yeah, they're all over.
I'm just used to being in Kansas.
I almost hit a goose on the way here.
I saw a bald eagle on the way there.
I was going
Glad
to
you
the
did.
like road,
Pretty big.
and you know, have you been down Logan's Lake? The house on the right that has that big pond.
I love that house.
They were sitting right by the road. No, not Zoe's house. No, it's not that. There's a goose was sitting like in between the road and the pond, and he started to walk out and like, oh.
Is that Zoe's house?
No, Zoe's is
Oh,
on
you
the
mean the
left.
one like the one on that hill with the little green shop at the bottom? That's one.
Cool. So you have that
No,
little
it's
one.
across from Zoe's house.
I like the one with the slide that's across from that.
That's the runabout.
She doesn't like yours.
I like that one too. The one with the slide is really kind of All right. Anyways, yes.
How is an ostrich a bird if it can't fly?
They don't have to be able to fly to be a bird. Penguins can't fly. Emus can't fly, but they have the other characteristics. So they became birds first and had a common ancestor first, and then they lost the ability to fly later.
I don't understand
Wait,
why
ostrich, there's a difference between ostrich
emu or
Yes, and
I thought it
Rio.
was like the same thing.
I don't know why emu or ostrich can't fly, but emu.
Do you think we'll see any ostriches around?
But the wing's body ratio is probably pretty similar. Bees have strong wings. Bees' wings are like that big, and their bodies are like that big.
You're gonna crash.
But it's also movement required.
I guess so.
The movement is different.
I guess so.
And we'll learn about bird flight too. Alright, so this kind of shows how it divides up. And again, we're emphasizing that the crocodiles and alligators are the ones most closely related to the bird. So there was some kind of common ancestor back here that branched off, and reptiles went one way and birds went the other way. This is another kind of way to look at it. So we've got our common ancestors over here at the bottom, and then as we branch off and get more advanced, here's the amphibians coming off, lizards, and then we've got our birds. Whereas right here, we had the branch of mammals. So the mammals kind of went a different direction too. They all shared a common ancestor, but reptiles, birds, more closely related. Now, Archaeopteryx is a very important fossil in science. This was discovered a while ago now, but it was kind of the missing link that showed that reptiles and birds had a common ancestor. So in this fossil, it is very distinctive that you can see that this fossil has feathers, and it has a lot of reptile characteristics as well. It's got a claw tail that looked like a reptile, but it definitely has feathers and wings. It also has teeth inside its beak. So the fossil was very well preserved, and scientists were able to label this one as okay. This one is probably where they split. This was the common ancestor, and one went one direction and became birds, and one went the other direction and became reptiles. Yes?
So what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Or the red.
Well, first came the reptile, and so that means the egg probably came
And then
first.
that reptile like laid the egg, but it was a different kind of reptile.
Because there is a genetic mutation within the egg.
And then the chicks came.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Good question. So wings started out just adding stability while jumping. So the wings weren't initially made for flight, they were made for stability while jumping from place to place. Flight was something that evolved later on.
So it was like a little birdie kangaroo.
Pretty much.
What are those birds that are like that? So they just like hop around? No, I mean like, that's how they get around. It's like they hop. They don't walk.
That's probably the easiest.
No.
Have you seen the tucker? Please let me know what it is.
No, just like there's some type of bird that I will birds. You're not understanding what I'm saying. There's a bird that just hop.
Yes.
They don't fly. All birds fly except for this one.
Alright, so this is the Archaeopteryx fossil. Again, it's super famous because it is so well preserved. You can actually see the imprint of the feathers. You can see the claws on the feet and the teeth in the beak. And so it's very definitely got like a reptile-shaped head, a reptile tail, but you can even see the feathers on the tail. So because this fossil was so well preserved, they were able to draw kind of what the artist thinks it looks like. Now obviously they have no idea what it really looks like. They're just going up based off of the fossil. So there's a lot of coloration variation. Maybe it was more of a blue, maybe it was more of a red, but they kind of have an idea of how long the tail was and what the arm shape was because of that fossil. Now, some characteristics of birds in general. They do have feathers. That is one of the things that make them a bird. I'm sure you learned back in elementary school, birds have feathers, mammals have fur, reptiles have scales. But the feathers aid in flight and also help maintain heat. So they are warm-blooded, or the correct term is endothermic. Endothermic meaning that they make their own body temperature. This is the first time that endothermic has appeared. Mammals and birds are the only ones that are endothermic. Their feathers are required to help keep that heat next to their body so they don't lose it to the environment. They do molt their feathers periodically, and so it's basically like a shedding of the feathers to replenish new ones. Bones are hollow and lightweight but strong. So it says that bones are hollow. That's kind of false. They have crisscrossing supports inside. So they are thin, but the crisscrossing supports make their bones stronger than if it was completely hollow like a straw. So think of it as, well, we'll see a picture in a little bit, but it is hollow, but it's got those cross supports that provide it with more strength. Because honestly, it has to have a lot of strength in order to fly. And that's also what the keeled sternum is. The keeled sternum is the breastbone, but it is really extended because that is where the flight muscles attach. So their flight muscles have to be really, really strong and really big. So they need a big bone to attach to. And that's what the sternum does. So basically it's really big pecs. The pectoralis muscles of the bird are going to attach to that keeled sternum so that they can fly and be stronger. So my daughter was watching, it was a paramotor. Have you ever heard of a paramotor?
Yes.
I really want one now.
That's cool.
I love flights. I've always thought like an ultralight plane would be fun, but then I saw this paramotor. It's like, okay, so you know paraglider?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, only you strap a motor on your back so you can fly.
Oh,
I've seen those, yeah. Yeah, I've seen those.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I wish we still had.
But a paraglider, $5,000, which isn't too bad to be able to fly.
I mean,
How fast I can, probably not safe, but I really want to do it. How fast can I save up $5,000.
I want to make this motorcycle. It's literally a motorcycle frame sitting on top of a single jet.
That sounds safe too.
I swear that I've lost like 5 water bottles from just.
I think the paramotor is probably the closest to flying because you've got the motor kind of on a backpack thing, and then you've got the parasail.
What still have my Gatorade? Freaking drop it. Shattered.
Well, it's kind of because it's got the parasail that helps you like support you. Paramotor, you can look it up.
I know you can fill those in an air bike and get some sand, apple tires on it, cruise it across the lake and you'll go.
All right, so this kind of shows the different types of feathers. We've got flight feathers that are more stiff, and then we've got these softer feathers that provide more warmth to the body. So these are, their purpose is more to keep the heat trapped close to the body, and these are the ones that are actually helping with flight. This is what the bone looks like of a bird, and this is compared to a human. So it is hollow, but it's got a lot of these crisscrosses that provide support.
So they don't have bone marrow?
They kind of do, but it's inside the center part.
How are they supposed to do bone marrow transplants?
They don't do it for birds. Then we have the keeled sternum. This is where the sternum is, and it's this very large projection, and that again allows for the muscle attachment of the flight wings or the pectoralis muscles. Now, the other cool thing about birds, of all of the animals, including mammals, birds have the best respiratory system. They have air sacs that allow for super efficient breathing. They need that because oxygen is necessary in order to make energy. Flying takes a lot of energy, so they have to have really good oxygen intake in order to be able to fly. And so these air sacs are a series within their body. They have lungs too, but it allows the air to pass through so they are continuously getting fresh oxygen. Now with us, we breathe in through our lungs, but there is always a little bit of stale air left over. That stale air never leaves our lungs because if it did, then our lungs would collapse and stick together like a wet water balloon would. So it needs to have a little bit of air left in our lungs so that they stay open. So we have always got stale air in our lungs. Birds never have stale air. They always are getting fresh air, and it's because of these air sacs. Birds also have a 4-chambered heart. Birds, mammals, crocodiles, and reptiles all have that 4-chambered heart. Again, super efficient for oxygen retention. Because now with 4 chambers, the blood that has oxygen and the blood that's deoxygenated do not cross each other. And it does not mix. They stay separated. So it's much more efficient to get that oxygen to the body. Again, the more oxygen you have, the more energy your body will have. They lay eggs with a hard shell, so that means, again, they're not reliant on water like the amphibians were. And they also experience something called sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism is where the males and the females look quite different from each other. You can see this especially in ducks and geese. The ducks, the males will be brightly colored, and the females are more of a drab kind of brown color. Why do you think the females need to have that brown color?
They're sitting on the nest.
Exactly. So when they're sitting on the nest, that they're camouflaging. At the zoo, we had a pond, and it was the only pond like for miles around. So we got lots of ducks that were wild. They would build nests all over the zoo, and there are several times we walk right past one and we wouldn't even know it was there because the female was so well camouflaged.
And then you just
Pretty much. Why do you think the males are brightly colored? The males are brightly colored, guys, let's listen. The males are brightly colored to attract the females. It's their way of saying, I've got all this energy that I can spend on making myself look good, that I have good genetics. And so you want to mate with me because I don't need to camouflage. I can find enough food, I can find enough resources, and so you don't need to worry about that. I've got good genetics. So sexual dimorphism is something that is common in more advanced animals. Females are that bland color for camouflage.
Aren't the lizards like that?
Some lizards, but we see it a lot more. Think of like a silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
Or a,
Baboon.
yeah, the baboon. That one's kind of weird. Baboons have colorful butts.
What's another?
No, they're pretty simple. Lions.
Yeah.
In the line.
Maybe.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it's
but
like
you-
the Batman, but it'd be too serious.
Take a road.
Hey, makes you feel better,
Okay, that's fine.
Most likely to attract a mate, yes. More colorful feathers are going to be more attractive to the females, and the females haven't shown to be more attractive to them.
Aren't peacocks brown?
There's been a lot of research done about peacocks. The peacocks are the females. The more eye spots that a peacock has, the more attractive they are to a female. Okay, so this shows the lung system and the sacs that the bird has. So they still have lungs, but they've got all these different air sacs as well. So when we dissected birds in the past, the air sacs are actually quite hard to see because they were thin membranes, so we typically cut through them without even realizing it. But they've got regular lungs, but the air sacs keep helping move things in one direction, so there's no stale air. This also shows what the air sacs look like. And then, of course, the four-chambered heart, where the blue represents deoxygenated blood, and the red represents the blood that does have oxygen. The egg color and variety is very diverse. There's lots of different egg sizes and egg colors. I think I still have my emu egg over here. Oh, and I think we do have an ostrich egg. I'll have to search that up.
We have an emu. What?
So one of the things I did at the zoo, we had emus, is I carved eggs and then I gave them away for auctions and things. Because as you can see with the emu, you can get white and then light blue and dark blue. So we had emus and we'd save their eggs and then we'd haul the eggs out. And then I would carve them occasionally to give to like fundraisers and stuff. So
Wait,
Wait, so if you drop that, a baby off.
it's already kind of broken.
Can you bring it around? Like,
Don't break my egg. Be mad if you guys break my egg. It's already kind of broken.
What happens if I break
Fry
it?
that open, it's good.
What?
We can fry that open. It's good.
No, it's empty.
All the
Skittle?
This picture is showing sexual dimorphism. So these are the same species. We've just got a female and a male. All right, other things is birds do exhibit parental care. So that parental care we saw in alligators, but we didn't see in many other types of reptiles. Altricial and precocial, these are two words you need to know. Altricial is a type of bird that is born blind with no feathers and helpless. So think of a baby robin, okay, a baby sparrow, one that lives in a nest in a tree. They're born blind, they have these huge mouths, they have no feathers, they're really kind of helpless. Those are altricial birds. Now precocial are the ones like ducks and chickens that are hatched on the ground, and they're typically born fluffy and ready to go. What do you think the difference is? Why do we need a precocial bird to be more advanced? So they can survive. Their nest is on the ground. They need to get off of that nest and into the water as quickly as possible. So precocial birds have more advancement by the time they hatch. They have more feathers, their eyes are open, they can get up and walking, they can get to that water and that safety really quickly. Whereas altricial birds, their nests are in the trees, so they are protected by height. And their mothers will constantly protect them too. So they don't need, break my egg. They don't need as much protection right away. The other thing that's interesting about birds is their beak shape. Their beak shapes are different depending on what they eat. Think of a hummingbird versus a parrot. Very different beak shapes because a hummingbird is going to eat nectar from flowers and a parrot is going to be eating like nuts and things like that. So beak shape is different, and you can also tell a lot about what a bird eats by looking at its beak. Crop versus gizzard. We've done crop and gizzard before, but the crop is basically going to store the food, and the gizzard is going to grind up the food. So the crop is just a storage area. And the gizzard we talked about with reptiles was they actually swallow little rocks and it gets into that gizzard and then the gizzard muscles squeeze it and the rocks crunch everything up because they typically don't chew their food. Their feet shape are different too depending on the bird's lifestyle. Talons for a owl or a hawk. Webbed feet for a duck or a swan. Perching feet that kind of grasp things for other kinds of songbirds. There's even the woodpecker that has something called zygodactyl, which is 2 toes pointing forward and 2 pointing back, so they can kind of stand on the side of a tree.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah,
They rest on a horn like an eagle on a
Birds
perch.
can have mixed genders.
Those are some great real news.
This says gender mix.
I am not sure on that.
If it's on a website, that's.
They have both male and female.
Oh.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And a website is not using that term correctly, which is where I was
It
confused.
says gender mix,
Yeah.
and that's where I was like,
There's so much stuff that.
I know, and it's not like, we were talking about this, it's not too much action, but it's not too.
I know there are lizards that can, like, entire female colonies of lizards.
yeah.
There's entire female colonies of lizards, and some of the lizards will take on male traits to stimulate reproduction. But I didn't know if that
I
was
don't cars, you
done in
know.
birds.
I don't
or
mean,
if it is.
macaw.
The only thing, that was the only part where it was like kinda unreal.
I've always wanted to know why it's like my dreams like.
One of my favorite movies is called Highway Home.
No, you just see it.
Such a
Came
good
out this
movie.
weekend. I wanted to go
sound, and then as soon as you started running, you could hear them.
Yeah, they imprint, and that's like an instinctual thing that is survival.
Oh my god.
That would not be a deal. Though a crocodile might protect him. Alright, so here we can see an altricial versus a precocial. The altricials are quite different looking from the precocial ones. Different variations in beaks. We have an avocet, which is a fish eater, woodpecker for drilling into the wood, eagle, crossbill. These guys are weird. Their crossbill is for eating pine cone seeds. So they'll stick their beak in and close it, and it pries the pine cone apart.
What's the difference? Like, why is the avocet and then the kiwi one? Why is like one? Why is that one pointed upward and the other one pointed?
Kiwi is more for insects. They are a flightless land bird. Avocet is a water bird, and so when they tilt their head down, it's kind of like the flamingo. When they tilt their head down, it makes it so it's more level with the water.
Flamingos eat their head upside down.
We have flamingos that do. Different kinds of feet. There's lobes. This is for like a loon, and then we've got this is perching feet, the webbed ones, and then of course the raptors. This is the intestinal tract. We've got a crop. We've got a gizzard. They've got a cecum toward the back as well. Liver is smaller and gallbladder is smaller. All right. Any questions on any of that? Okay. You have a bird dissection prep. Again, we are not dissecting a bird because we don't have birds.
I do go back over Yeah, we can.
We're not killing any birds to take them apart.
We kill
But we are still going to do the dissection prep to help us to learn and compare the inside structures. Questions?
I really backwards.
Mr.